Squirrel, unless your wife writes me a note, the beard stays.
Yeah, she's not a fan. I guess it's too rough.
Okay, Council Chair, we are now live.
Thank you all. Today, June 11th, this is the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. I understand that the state law currently requires that the following announcement be made at the beginning of every remote public hearing as follows. Due to the current public health emergency, City Council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at the public hearings of council committees are included in the public hearing notice that are published in the Daily News, Inquirer, and Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearing and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. I now note that the hour has come. Mr. McGonigal, will you please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance will please indicate that you are here present when your name is called. Also, please say a few words responding so that your image will appear and be displayed on the screen when you speak. Mr. McGonigal?
Councilman Squilla.
Here.
Council Member Dom.
Present.
Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson.
Present.
Councilwoman Jamie Gauthier.
Present. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy to be here today.
Councilman Kenyatta Johnson.
Present.
Councilman Curtis Jones.
Present and accounted for.
Councilwoman Kendra Brooks.
I'm present.
Councilman Derek Green. Councilman David O.
Present, happy to be with the heavy hitters.
Councilman Derek Green again. I know he's signed on. Councilwoman Sherelle Parker.
I'm sorry, I was still on mute. Thanks, Councilman Jones. Present.
Councilman Derek Green.
Thank you, Sean. A quorum of the committee is present, and this hearing is now called to order. This is a public hearing on the Committee of Commerce and Economic Development regarding bills number 2009293 and 200344. That's 200293 and 200344. Mr. McGonigal, will you please read the title of the bills?
Bill number 200293, an ordinance amending Chapter 17-1400 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Non-Competitively Bid Contracts, Financial Assistance, by making revisions, including but not limited to the exception for emergency contracting, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 200344, an ordinance amending Title IX of the Philadelphia Code to create a new Chapter 9-5000 entitled Food Delivery Services, to regulate third-party food delivery services, require certain disclosures to consumers, and provide for a limitation on certain fees charged to consumers, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. McGonigal. Before we begin the hearing and testimony from the witnesses we have for today, everyone who has been invited to the meeting to testify should be aware that the public hearing is being recorded. Because the hearing is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be in this meeting, you are consenting to be recorded. Additionally, prior to recognizing members with questions or comments they have for the witness, I will note for the record, at this time, we will use the chat feature available on Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized in order to comply with the Sunshine Act, and the chat feature must only be used for this purpose. Before we go into testimony, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Parker for comments.
Thank you, Chairman Squilla, and all members of the Commerce and Economic Development Committee. I also want to thank Council Members Squilla, Dom, Jones, Green, and all members who supported this legislation as co-sponsors. Let me begin by noting that I began working on delivery-related legislation with several restaurant owners and the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association back at the end, probably the last week in January of 2020. So our work on this issue began pre-COVID. And at that time, the legislation was primarily focused on stopping unauthorized delivery services, which is when food delivery service companies list restaurants' menus and information on their websites, but without their permission. However, when the COVID-19 pandemic began and restaurants were only allowed to do pickup and delivery, it became clear that these food delivery services were making it even more difficult for restaurants that were just trying to weather this unprecedented economic storm. And as you can imagine, these food delivery services, acting as the middleman, collect a percentage of the sale. The percentage of the sale collected, it ranges based upon the company and the restaurant. But the rates typically seen have been between 20 and 30% of the sale, but higher rates are not uncommon. Now, restaurants, in the midst of a severe reduction in their revenue stream, are relying on these delivery apps to reach their customer base. However, due to such high per-order fees, restaurants' ability to weather this unprecedented time is actually being put into jeopardy. That is why this legislation is, in fact, essential and necessary right now. In addition to prohibiting unauthorized delivery services, this legislation being heard today also requires certain disclosures to customers and institutes a cap on the commission fees third-party delivery services can charge restaurants throughout the duration of the city's public health emergency and an additional 90 days after the end of the emergency. Now, I should mention that we heard from several third-party delivery services asking for amendments, particularly related to the cap on the commission fee. Now, for the record, we originally proposed a cap of 10%. And Mr. Chairman, that would have been one of the most stringent in the country. But today, I am offering a few amendments. The amendments do three things for the benefit of all members of the committee, and this amendment has been circulated to all members. First, they acknowledge that there are different types or tiers of third-party delivery services. Some just do marketing for restaurants because the restaurants, in fact, have their own in-house delivery service. And some do both marketing and delivery for restaurants. They use what we would call couriers to do these deliveries. And second, the amendments place different caps based on the tiers. The cap will be 5% for those third-party delivery services that just do marketing, and the cap will be 15% total for those third-party delivery services that do both marketing and delivery. They can use 5% on marketing and 10% on delivery. And third, the amendments add language prohibiting companies from reducing compensation to couriers or garnishing their gratuities as a result of the fee caps. And I know that this last one in particular was very much concern to members of the committee. I know Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson and Councilmember Brooks, I know you were very much concerned about that, and we have addressed that concern. I think these amendments show that we have been open to listening both sides. And it's very frustrating, Mr. Chairman, and I have to say it. We make it our standard operating procedure to not only work with just one party, but we work with all. And I have to note that for the benefit of members of the committee, because it has been communicated to me in some form or fashion or intimated that we have not done that. And for the record, I want to note that we have heard what the third-party delivery services have said. With this in mind, Mr. Chairman, I am not surprised that some of these third-party delivery services are still testifying against the bill today, or in fact have been lobbying members of the committee to vote against it. If I had accepted all of their proposed amendments, it would have in essence watered down the bill too much, and it would have rendered it in fact almost useless. And for those of you who know me, you know that's not how I operate. Now is the time to support our locally grown small businesses, and that includes our restaurants. We need to ensure that they not only have the best chance of surviving these challenging times, but that they also have the ability to thrive and move past this challenge. And Councilmember Allen said that you made people and when you talk about AI, technology moves people out that place, that's just when you talk to you, there is one technology, not the the service public authority. I want you to hear some of the students. I want you to know there's a association. You are able to say that the mission has third restaurants. That's the first thing. Attempting to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, we could in essence see a resurgence in the fall, and either outdoor dining and or in-store dining, they could stop again. Now, the final thing I heard, and this was very interesting, that exempting credit card fees from the cap would be disastrous. Now, there's a company called DoorDash, or I've heard some people say Caviar. They're going to argue that credit card fees are between 3% and 4%, and that they are set by the payment processor. Now, I have a 7-year-old son, and they don't use dictionaries like we used to. This is a different generation. And when you don't know something, Langston says, well, mommy, like, just Google it. And so I did what Langston would recommend. And when I did that, I saw that which was communicated to me was a little bit of an exaggeration. In fact, credit card fees and restaurants point out that they have to eat the credit card processing fees. So why should third-party delivery services not have to do the same? And those fees that I saw were between 1% and 3%. So, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to make sure that I put all of that on the record for the benefit of my colleagues. And I thank you all so very much for your patience in allowing me to get that information on the record. I look forward to the testimony. Thank you. Chairman Squill, I can't hear you.
There you go.
Yes.
I do want to say that if you're not speaking, it's good to mute because there was somebody had some background noise during that conversation. But thank you, Majority Leader. I appreciate your input on that bill, on these bills. And that I also want to note for the record that Councilmember Green is present and on the call. So, Mr. McMonigle, will you please call the first panel of witnesses we have to testify this afternoon on bill number 200-293 and 200-344. Before, if you're connected and ready to proceed, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. Mr. McMonigle?
Stephanie Tipton, commenting on or testifying on bill number 200-293.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Councilmember Squilla, Chair of the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development, Councilmember Dom, and the other members of the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. My name is Stephanie Tipton, Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Philadelphia. Joining me today is T. David Williams, Deputy Chief Administrative Officer and Director of the Contracts Unit. I am here to provide testimony on bill number 200-293. The Office of the Chief Administrative Officer, or CAO, is charged with the oversight of the city's core administrative departments and functions. The CAO's contracts unit oversees city and business compliance with the city's non-competitively bid contracting requirements, which are codified in Chapter 17-1400 of the Philadelphia Code. One of the CAO's goals is to ensure that city services are efficient and effective, inclusive and equitable, transparent, and conducted with integrity. Bill number 200293 amends Code Section 171406 entitled Sole Source Contracts, Emergencies, and Other Exemptions to exempt certain non-competitively bid City Council contracting opportunities from Code Section 171402(1)A, which requires posting of a notice of a contract opportunity, and Section 171402(1)C, which requires a notice of contract award prior to execution of the contract, when Council President certifies in writing that a delay in the award of such a contract would cause material threat to public health or safety, except that the disclosures required by Section 171402(1)B need not be filed until 14 days after the contract is executed. The CAO does not object to the proposed amendment, as it is consistent with the public health or safety exception that currently applies to all non-competitively bid contracts as certified by the Director of Finance, and simply moves the responsibility for certification of that exemption for council contracts from the Director of Finance to the Council President. However, I want to make one note that implementation of the proposed amendment will require additional support from our third-party contractor to make the programming changes necessary to our internal contracting system and our public-facing portal, which will result in a cost increase that we had not budgeted for in FY21. This concludes my testimony, and we are happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I didn't have any questions, but I know that a couple council members wanted to be recognized. Councilmember Dom?
Thank you, Chairman Squilla. I want to thank our colleague, Councilmember Parker, for introducing this very important legislation. As we all know, many restaurants, unfortunately, had to close their doors for good due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I also want to thank my colleagues, though, for working together on our hospitality work group that focused on how we get this industry back on their feet. We like to call it a smart restart. We've all put a lot of thought and work into actionable steps we can take to get to a healthy and safe restart for our economy. For the restaurants that have managed to stay open, and that is a struggle, they're hanging on by a thread right now. The fees charged by third-party delivery services, some reported as high as 30%, have been an unwarranted burden. These fees have deterred customers from ordering from their local restaurants, thereby supporting the local businesses and jobs. This legislation, offered by Councilmember Parker, levels the playing field for everyone by capping the fees on the pre-tax amount. It helps keep local jobs filled and the economy moving forward in this very challenging time. Of course, there have been delivery service providers offering discounts and other helpful options for restaurants, and I want to recognize those efforts. When we can help increase the number of sales for restaurants, we can help employ more people and serve more customers. I want to thank Councilmember Parker for her great work on this legislation. It incorporates a lot of the feedback and insight from industry leaders, from the hospitality working group, from conversations we've had with the Chamber of Commerce restaurant owners and their customers. And again, Councilmember Parker, thank you so much for spearheading this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember Dom. Councilmember Gauthier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also wanted to take a moment to commend and thank Majority Leader Parker for introducing Bill number 200344. The bill is modeled off of measures adopted in other cities around the country. It will protect restaurants from unsound marketing practices, and it will provide a vital boost to restaurants struggling to make ends meet during this pandemic. I support the bill because it will keep more restaurants in business, contribute to more restaurants being able to reopen, and allow restaurants to hire and rehire more employees. And I think this bill will make a big difference to small restaurants across the city, including in my district. I am mindful of the impact that the bill will have on the revenue of third-party delivery service companies. However, I believe these companies are able to withstand a temporary decrease in revenues and will benefit in the long run if restaurants are more more quickly able to recover from COVID-19. I also understand that an amendment to the bill is being offered today by Majority Leader Parker that will prevent delivery service companies from reducing wages for drivers and couriers or garnishing their tips in response to the fee cap, and which I think is very important. So thank you again, Majority Leader Parker, for your leadership on this bill and for your support to small businesses.
Thank you, Council Member. Is there anybody else who has any questions on Bill number 200293? For Stephanie? Speak up if you do. If not,
I have a statement.
okay, Councilmember Johnson.
I just want to say I support this bill. I want to thank Majority Leader Councilman Sherelle Parker for her hard work and her dedication. I know for a fact from working with her on the state level as well as in City Council that she has done her due diligence to make sure that this is a bill that will benefit businesses throughout the city of Philadelphia. Thank you very much. Just want to put that on the record.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Again, this bill 200293 was the first bill to be testified on. Seeing no other questions, short of Mr. McMonagle, is there anybody else to testify on bill number 200293?
I don't have anyone else scheduled to testify.
Okay, thank you. Since seeing nobody else to testify on this bill, is there anybody testifying on Councilmember Parker's bill 200344?
Dawn Somerville testifying on bill number 200344 for the administration.
Dawn, please state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Dawn Somerville. Good afternoon, Chairperson Squilla and members of the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. My name is Dawn Somerville, and I am the Deputy Commerce Director for Business Development. I'm happy to be here today to provide testimony in support of Bill 200344, which regulates third-party food delivery services, requires certain disclosures to consumers, and provides a limitation on certain fees charged to consumers. Restaurants play a critical role in the economy of Philadelphia and help give our neighborhoods their distinct character. We are a diverse and vibrant city, and our restaurants, many of which have earned widespread national recognition, create important employment opportunities for our residents and are a magnet that attracts people from all over our city, region, and country. The cultural and economic impacts of Philadelphia's dining and restaurant scene cannot be overstated. However, since March 17th, restaurants in our city have been limited to takeout and delivery only in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19. To say this has had a profound impact on our restaurant industry would be an understatement. The Commerce Department has been working closely with a large and diverse group of restaurateurs from across the city to understand their concerns and address their needs. Some restaurants have expressed concerns that some, though not all, delivery platforms have taken advantage of the current situation. Up to this point, these services realize that restaurants can primarily operate only through delivery or takeout, putting them at a competitive disadvantage. We support the overall intent of this legislation and applaud Councilmember Parker for her leadership on this issue. We also like to express the importance of engaging stakeholders on both sides of this issue, as they are all part of Philadelphia's food and hospitality ecosystem. We understand and recognize that some of these delivery platforms pay couriers well, offering important opportunities for economic mobility for a number of Philadelphians. Commerce remains dedicated to supporting all businesses and job creators throughout the city and in all sectors. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you so much, Dawn. I know there was one question that I missed for the previous bill. Councilmember Brooks, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, really quick. It's for Stephanie Tipton, I think was the person. I was wondering what are the changes in cost? How much is that exactly? I'm sorry.
No problem. I don't think it would be a significant cost. Mr. Williams, who's on the call, can probably speak to it more specifically, but I don't think it's significant. I just want to raise it that, it's just a cost that we have to incur that we hadn't really budgeted for. And so just in light of where we are with our budget, we just have to be mindful of how we're funding it. That's all.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Majority Leader Parker, for introducing these bills. That was just my only question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Brooks. Are there any questions for Dawn on her testimony? Seeing none, Mr. McMonagle, do you want to read the names of the other people testifying?
Recognize Councilman Green. He has a question.
Councilmember Green?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Somerville, thank you for your testimony this morning. As you have been working with various restaurateurs who are dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, I know in past conversations there's been surveys that have been done for various businesses. I know Councilmember Dom has put together a hospitality group. Councilmember Parker has talked about the work she's been doing on this issue prior to COVID-19. I'm curious in reference to what type of conversations or information you've gathered from restaurateurs regarding this legislation, this issue.
In my discussions, thank you, Councilman, for that question. In my discussions with a lot of the restaurateurs, as you know, restaurants as well as supermarkets, they all work off of very thin margins. The impact of the fees that some of them have been imposed on the delivery has cut into profits, and profits have been very thin for them. These restaurants have been through a lot since the shutdown. Many have had to dispose of inventory, thousands and thousands of dollars. So a lot of the concerns are not all, the tactics of some of the delivery platforms as far as, again, 30% fees, contacting customers when they hadn't had menus on their platforms that they didn't agree to. So there's been various things. And again, I want to say that's not all. But there are some bad actors out there, and they have really cut into the profit margins for our restaurants who are struggling to stay afloat.
And I'm also trying to get a sense of the issue with the delivery drivers in reference to the restaurateurs that have, when you say cut into profits, is there a distinction between those restaurateurs that have their own delivery people versus those who are relying on these third-party entities to do the delivery for them?
I would say yes. So there are restaurants that have their own delivery drivers. Again, sorry for the background noise here where I am. Some of the restaurants have employees who weren't feeling safe enough to come back. So they were working off a very minimum staff, right? So a lot of the restaurant delivery fees were going into the platforms for delivery platforms, the charges there. There's been incidents that once the delivery was made or the end consumer no longer want the product, that was canceled. The charge went back to the restaurant or was taken from that delivery person's income. So there's been a mix of both. I think the challenge, again, has really been about the fees. It's been about the impact that it's had on the bottom line. That's where it stands at this moment.
And then my last question is that some of these companies, third-party platforms, are just focusing on marketing where others do marketing and delivery. And can you give me a distinction between the two based on the information you receive from restaurateurs?
Some of them, as far as the marketing, Councilwoman Parker spoke to that early when she opened up her testimony. Some of the marketing has come from marketing and logistics, right? So there's operations, logistics and operations. Some of the marketers have also imposed a fee to help broaden their platform off of the backs of the restaurant. So those fees have been imposed within the charge.
I'm sorry, one last question. So the entities, are they reaching out to the restaurants initially, or how does that process work?
Initially, some have, and some have not. Some of them that's placing their menus on their platforms. And if there is a popular platform, you're just going there and you're assuming that there's a partnership there.
Right, okay.
The delivery is happening in that fashion. And again, not all, but some.
And this happens more to, I would say this happens more to the smaller restaurateurs than the chains who have a larger infrastructure to make sure this doesn't happen, correct?
I've been hearing from smaller restaurateurs versus the larger chain. That's correct.
Okay.
And the larger chains can again, they can take a more of an impact than our smaller restaurants.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Brooks?
Yes, I want to, I really appreciate these amendments that assure that drivers will not have their wages and tip garnished as a result of this commission cap, as Majority Leader spoke about earlier. But I was wondering, how would this prohibition be enforced?
I'm sorry, Councilwoman, was that?
Like, do we have a way to enforce this prohibition?
Point of reference. I think point of reference. I'm not sure if Dawn could answer that question. I think that's something that would be done through the administration for enforcement, probably through the Department of Labor, through Deputy Mayor Laser. We'll have to come up with guidelines on how to enforce that. But Councilmember Parker, I don't know if you're still on, if you want to address that.
Yes, I am. Relative to enforcement, you're absolutely right, Chairman Squilla. You do know that we have been working very short-staffed, Councilwoman Brooks, as you know, but it would not just include the Office of Labor. It would also include licenses and inspections, because restaurants are, right, in essence, are governed by guidelines also that come from L&I. So it would take a mix of departments along with commerce. Right, so it's Labor Department, Commerce Department, along with the Department of L&I, and we will work through the enforcement process with those entities.
So that would I'm just trying to conceptualize this. Would L&I and the Labor and Commerce also monitoring and collecting of the fees and penalties as well?
Well, then now when you talk about the collecting of the fees and penalties, we also get into revenue. Right, so there are multiple departments within the city of Philadelphia that would have to come together to each figure out their lane and role in the enforcement process. And we will have to work through that upon the passage of this legislation through council.
Okay, thank you so much. That's very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. If there's no other questions for Dawn, Mr. McMonagle, do you want to read the name of the next person testifying, please?
Sure. Amy Healy with Grubhub, commenting on 200344.
Hi, Amy. Just state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony. Amy, if you're able to unmute yourself. If not, do we, Mr. McMonagle, do we have another person testifying on this bill?
Yes. Can we have Melissa Bova of the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association?
Hi, my name is Melissa Bova. Good afternoon, Chairman Squilla and members of the Commerce and Economic Development Committee. Thank you for allowing me to offer feedback and support for Bill number 130044, which is sponsored by Councilwoman Parker. My name is Melissa Bova, and I'm the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association. PRLA represents the hospitality industry in Philadelphia, an industry that is arguably the hardest hit from the coronavirus. Before March of this year, we were set to grow 10%. New restaurants were opening every week, and Philadelphia was in many ways the food scene other cities aspire to. I'm going to hit some specific points and broader points here, and then turn it over to some of our Philadelphia restaurants that are here to testify, and they can speak more to this legislation than I ever could. Many of you have already seen the economic data when the industry was hardest hit in March. That data has not gotten much better as we continue to fight to see the light at the end of this coronavirus tunnel. In May, restaurants continued to see a 79% decline in sales based on the same time last year. Almost 60% of the workforce remains furloughed, and every single day we hear of more restaurants that will never open their doors again. Those that are still hanging on do not expect to be profitable for at least another 6 months, which is why helping these restaurants that are trying to get through to the other side of this crisis is extremely important right now. The legislation you are considering today is not new around the country or even here in Philadelphia. Councilwoman Parker, as she mentioned, recognized some of the issues with some third-party delivery companies and has been working with us on legislation since January. As we began to see the impact of the coronavirus, and to that point, total reliance on takeout for a restaurant to survive, the councilwoman recognized that something needed to be done sooner than later. The legislation addresses a number of concerns that we have heard directly from restaurants. Some of these companies were completely misrepresenting restaurant websites, and customers thought they were ordering directly from the restaurant when they were not. These websites, in many cases, used inaccurate menus and blamed the restaurant when prices were not accurate and the customer complained. Unauthorized deliveries were completed, and in some cases, deliveries were attempted for restaurants that don't even offer delivery on a day-to-day basis. Further, this legislation recognizes the extremely unique and trying times we are in. Restaurants that are trying to survive with takeout are lucky if they make 30% of what they did before the crisis. They are not even breaking even, and fees charged by companies upwards of 30% harm this industry even more. These companies are able to charge the fees that they want, yet restaurants are not able to compensate to reflect these large fees, and therefore are struggling to survive right now if they're even breaking even with some of these orders. You can Google any of these services and click on almost any article and see some of the practices that have been occurring around the country, and unfortunately, for some of these services have been happening in Philadelphia. This cap is not forever. We recognize that this is to help restaurants get through to the other side of this crisis, recognizing the total reliance that we have on delivery and the fact that that reliance will not be reduced much even as we start to allow on-premise or indoor dining. To that end, indoor dining will start, if we're lucky, at 50%, and with social distancing might be even less. So this cap and the length of it is extremely important to help restaurants get back to where they were before. Our restaurants need help. We need to get them through this, and we need to do everything we can to bring back the vibrancy of the hospitality industry. And this is a great step to get us there. And we thank Councilwoman Parker for recognizing the need and urgency for this legislation, and we urge all of your support. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and I know we have some restaurateurs who are here to testify as well.
Thank you, Melissa. Appreciate your input. Are there any questions from members? I don't see any in the chat. So thank you for your testimony and for your support of this legislation. Council, Mr. McMonigle, please read the title of the next person testifying.
Could we hear from Judy Nye?
Judy, if you're present, just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Judy Nye. I am the owner of a small shop here in Philadelphia called Bology, and we appreciate the support of Councilperson Parker and for your taking the time to listen to our concerns and our needs.
What's her number?
I'm sorry?
Pardon me, I'm sorry, I wasn't on mute.
Oh, I apologize for that. We wanted to say and express our support for this bill in particular. I think one of the great things about Philadelphia is the support of small businesses and the entrepreneurship of the community that we have here. And I think it's important to remind everyone that we are a pass-through entity. Not only when you give your money to us, it goes back into the community. It goes into our farmers, it goes into the food providers, and it also goes into all the employees that we hire as well. Absolutely, larger businesses can absorb these fees, but as a small business that supports and hires within this community, we need the support of the committee as well as the council in order to have a fighting chance to keep going so that we can bring different types of businesses and different voices into this city. one of the things that I think has not been said is that if the third-party delivery apps are interested, in fact, in helping businesses, we also ask them, why does our pricing have to be set the same on their apps as we sell in-house? When we take customers in the shop and we take those orders, it is a certain price. They also fix it so that we have to offer that same price, despite the fact that they know that they are taking 20 to 30% of the sales. We're not saying that they shouldn't make money for the service they provide. We absolutely appreciate what they are doing, and we understand there's a value in that. But we also have to ask that, why are they capping what we do when we're trying to just make a living and pass on our revenues to the people in our community as well? So the focus of what we would like is to keep this going until we can at least have a fighting chance of surviving, and so that the city doesn't lose its vibrancy, which also contributes billions of dollars to the economy here as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy, for your testimony. Any questions by members of council?
So, Mr. Chair? Yeah, this is Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson. I just wanted to go back to that testimony because I was listening very intently. So the fees that are charged in the restaurant cannot be changed even though you're utilizing the service, so it's further eating into your profit. Is that correct?
Correct. So let's say I have a dish in-house that I do for $15. The third-party apps require us to sell that for $15 on their apps as well, even though they know they are taking a significant percentage. So one of the things that I would suggest is, if you want to cover your costs, and that's their argument, why wouldn't you just let us raise the prices so that even if the percentage is smaller, the amount that you're taking is larger, so that it does cover their operating costs that they're saying that they need covered?
Sure. So because if the meal is $15 and say if they take 30% off of that $15, you're down to like $11.50 or $10.50, right?
Correct. And then there are additional packaging requirements that are required for us as well. And we just want to make sure that we cover our costs. You know, when you squeeze us, it's not just, me. It's actually like you're asking us to basically screw our employees, screw our farmers, screw all the other providers. Why can't we work together to make this equitable for all the people involved? Why does it have to be an either-or proposition?
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Richardson. Is there any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Ms. Nye.
Go ahead, Councilmember Gauthier.
I wanted you to speak to, if this bill were enacted, how you would spend the money that you save from the reduction in fees.
So we've already had for the past, I think it's a month and a half, because we work with one delivery service right now, Caviar, in addition to providing our own delivery services. What we've been able to do with that money is we have not had to let go of any of our people. So we have a small team of 6, including myself, and we've tried to keep it focused on making sure they have income, because it's not just about what we're bringing home, because my husband and I work here full-time as well. It's about taking care of them to know they have a reliable source of revenue. Now, if you take that away, I don't know what to say about that. I think it's pretty obvious. And we've been able to maintain our commitments to farmers as well, because they are also suffering as well. It's a ripple through, right? We're a pass-through entity to support the rest of the community. And we obviously want to keep our entire team working and taking care of the rest of the community and making sure people are fed and nourished as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember, and thank you, Judy. Looks like we have one more question. Let's continue, Mr. McMonagle. Judy, thank you for your testimony. With the next person testifying on bill number 200344.
We have a Miss Darlene Jones, please.
Darlene, are you available?
Okay. How about a Mr. Dean Kitagawa? I apologize if I mispronounced that.
No, congratulations. That was right on. Thank you, everyone, for letting us talk here. Judy and I spoke recently, and she covers a lot of what our concerns are. I don't know about her business. I can only speak, but I've seen the pendulum swing from 80% dining in and locals coming to pick up food to 80% of our business being delivery, and it's your swallow the associated with the delivery fees, and quite frankly, the packaging that goes along with the delivery fees. Trying to also be environmentally conscious now, and that's the biggest difficulty that I've seen is the change in business, and we are as well lucky to stay open, and we have not had to let anyone go. We've kept all our employees, and they're the most important part of this. And it's tough sometimes when that swing hits you so immediate and drastically that we're obviously having to look to increase our prices, but in line with what Judy was saying, we're going to have to increase our prices for our neighborhood and our immediate people that come in, and they're not paying the luxury of picking up an app. They're walking out their door, being part of the community, and coming into the restaurant. And it's biting them to compensate for the third-party deliveries that we have to make up for. So I do think that Judy nailed pretty much all the things that we discussed, and I don't want to go down that path again. But it does get frustrating on our end, and if there was some legislation to change that, just to get us through these times at the very least. It would be a huge help to us small restaurant people.
Well, thank you for your testimony. And any questions? And I think, is there any questions? Seeing none, so I think Darlene was muted. And unmuted. Darlene, if you want to state your name for the record, and then forgive me your testimony, I appreciate it. Thank you, Dean. Are we able to unmute Darlene?
Thank you.
All right, if we can't unmute Darlene at this time, we'll save her for later. Mr. McMonagall, would you read the next name of the person testifying?
We have one other person who is currently being called in, Amy Healy from Grubhub. Lonnie is connecting with her currently. Councilwoman Gaultier, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking to Darlene. I'm trying to help her get on the call. Should she hit *6 to unmute?
Yes, I'll hit it again. I'll hit it right now again.
We hear her through your phone.
Yeah, hold your phone up.
I was trying to get her just on. We'll work on it.
Try hitting *6 to unmute her phone. *6.
Did you? Are you hearing me now?
Yes. Yes, we
Hello?
hear you now.
Oh,
Yes.
About time, guys, and I apologize. Hello, everyone. This is Darlene Jones.
Darlene, great. State your name, and then you can proceed with your testimony. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
No problem at all. Hello, my name is Darlene Jones of Blue Diamond Juicery, Star Fusion Restaurant on 63rd Street, and my new restaurant that opens this Saturday called Star Fusion Express. And first and foremost, let me just say thank you, everybody, for talking about this topic, because I did reach out to Ben, and I actually sent him a screenshot of the amount of percentage that was coming out of our weekly payment from either Uber Eats or Grubhub or Caviar. And it's really, 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 really excessive, especially during these times. At one point or another, when I was receiving Uber Eats deliveries and requests, the 30% that they were taking, it didn't really affect me because I wasn't receiving a whole lot of deliveries. But now, since COVID-19 hit, my delivery, the request for Uber Eats and delivery curbside, that has increased. So now it's super overwhelming, especially with the amount that they're taking out. I have 15 employees at one point, and I had to drop them down to like 7 employees just to accommodate with the difference. And I'm not even sure if I'm going to even use any kind of delivery mediums for my new store because I am afraid of losing that big giant chunk, especially during these times. So with all that being said, if you guys just do it temporarily or just do it for the long haul, anything would help us right now because we don't know if we're going to even be able to keep our doors open. Every day is a challenge and every day is a struggle. So if you guys can find some kind of medium how they can help us, and we're going to continue to do business with you as usual, I'll be happy altogether. And I hope everybody in the restaurant industry that's going through what I'm going through will be happy as well. But that's all I have to add to it. And thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just want you to know that Darlene represents the best of entrepreneurship in Philadelphia, a small yet thriving business. This is her 3rd location, 2 in my district, 1 in the 3rd district. And she's done it the right way, cutting no corners, taking no shorts, hiring people from the neighborhood, and even using healthy ingredients, not trying to pimp our health. And she gives back to the community. So when she says she's operating on tight margins, I want my colleagues to know that she's really doing it the right way, paying her fair share, hiring people from our neighborhood. And so when she says something, I actually listen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember Jones, and we appreciate that and understanding how a lot of our small businesses operate, and looking forward to working this bill out through committee and making this happen. So thank you for your comment. Mr. Any other questions? Seeing none, is there Mr. McMonagle?
Recognize Councilwoman Gauthier.
Yeah.
First, I wanted to congratulate Darlene on the new site. That's so fantastic. And I also wanted to echo Councilmember Jones' comments on what a great business owner and what great operations you have. Not only is Darlene's food delicious, but she's always trying to serve the community. We work together through the pandemic to provide food to first responders and to healthcare workers, and that's just an example of the kinds of things that she does in the community routinely, and she's an example of the type of business owner we're really trying to help through this legislation.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I, too, just wanted to echo the sentiments of my colleagues, and particularly my district council member, Councilman Curtis Jones, where Darlene's new business will be located in the 4th Council District. We have had the opportunity to work with her over the years, and my family has had the opportunity to support her during the pandemic. And we just want to thank her for being an exemplary business owner in our community, and we look forward to continuing to work with you and assist your small business. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Dom?
Thank you, Chairman Squill. I just want to echo my colleagues' sentiments, and I just want to share a few thoughts for us to think about. During this pandemic and what's been going on recently, we as a city have a struggle in front of us. And that struggle is going to be that many people in the city will look at the suburbs as an alternative. It's not just happening in Philadelphia, it's happening nationwide. And the reason why I bring that up is because we have, as a city, have a tremendous advantage that we need to make sure we maintain, and that is the urban environment. So restaurants, stores, part of your community, where people want to live there because of the lifestyle, is so key. And on a separate note, from the restaurant situation, I'm just going to share with you the numbers as I know them. Most restaurants, the food and labor costs range from fast casual from 50% to middle 60% to luxury 65 to 70% of total cost. At the end of the day, most restaurants are lucky if they have a 5 to 10% profit margin. Lucky if they have that. So just think about that and think about somebody's fees that they're having to absorb. It is, I don't think the question is how much money a restaurant's making today. The question is how much can we not lose? How much can we not have to write a check for on a weekly basis? I just wanted to share that with you because I know this is a fact in that industry today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Dom. Councilmember Green?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank Darlene for your ability to open up a new location in spite of this COVID-19 pandemic. As an at-large council member, I did have a chance to visit your location when I did a tour about, I believe, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And so the fact you're able to do this at this time, I think, is a shining example that we need to lift up for other entrepreneurs. And as an at-large council member, I love the fact that you are located in Councilmember Jones's district, but also there are other parts of the city, especially maybe in the northwest section, that have a great commercial corridor, especially like Wadsworth Avenue or Germantown Avenue. Just future thoughts as you expand your business, and I'm sure all of the members of council will be supportive of that. So just some future thoughts.
Thank you, Councilmember Green. I know there was a testimony, I think it was from Grubhub, Amy, and I'm just not sure why she was opposed to the cap. Is Amy still on the line?
I'm here.
Hi,
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. State your name again and then just answer the question.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Amy Healy, and I'm the head of public affairs for Grubhub. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today on bill number 200344, introduced by Councilmember Parker. Grubhub is a leading online and mobile food ordering and delivery marketplace. We have the largest network of restaurant partners, as well as nearly 24 million active diners. We were founded 16 years ago and are committed to supporting the cities we operate in, Philadelphia being one of them, and the thousands of local restaurants on our marketplace. And without them, we know there would be no Grubhub. Please know that Grubhub shares the committee's goal to support restaurants and provide customers with transparency into our fees. Grubhub is proud to have a growing presence in Philadelphia. Given the strong talent pool there, in 2019, Grubhub selected Philadelphia for our latest office, which now employs more than 100 people at our office located at 1601 Cherry Street. On behalf of those employees and the thousands of Philadelphia restaurants that have selected Grubhub to be their marketing engine, I would like to take this opportunity to comment on the ordinance impacting third-party delivery services. Grubhub agrees with the sponsors that the best way for restaurants to receive orders through third-party platforms is to have agreements to be on our marketplace. In fact, we believe partnering with restaurants is the only way to drive long-term value in this business, and have only added non-partnered restaurants to close the restaurant supply gap created by our competitors who have been adding restaurants without permission for years. We also agree that driver pay should not be penalized. At Grubhub, 100% of all driver tips have always gone directly to the driver. But we do have issue with the proposal to cap marketing fees at 5%. Grubhub already offers a 0% marketing commission plan for restaurants on orders from online ordering links that we provide them. This allows diners to order directly from a restaurant's website by adding an online ordering link powered by Grubhub, and they pay zero commission for this service. The restaurant can choose to pay for delivery themselves or choose to select Grubhub to deliver. So although Grubhub opposes the provisions in the bill capping fees, we are concerned with attempts to amend the language to provide an advantage to certain delivery network companies over others. Some of the amendments to the bill provide an economic extra incentive to deliver orders on a restaurant's behalf. putting Grubhub at a disadvantage because of our long-standing relationship with local Philly restaurants that choose to use us that choose to use their own drivers rather than third-party delivery drivers. Grubhub is more than a food delivery provider. Grubhub provides restaurant owners with technology, infrastructure, staff, customer service, and protections from credit card fraud. These activities are costly, time-consuming, beyond most owners' expertise, and shift their focus away from the real business, making the food diners love. Our fees go toward all of these services, not just delivery. In other cities where our services have been so drastically limited, we have seen small independent restaurants disadvantaged against chain restaurants who have nearly limitless ways to advertise. For Grubhub, nearly half of the orders processed on our platform in Philadelphia are delivered by a restaurant's own delivery workers. That means that while Grubhub spends money to promote that restaurant via our highly scaled advertising and marketing services, we would be limited to a 5% fee in total, which in no way covers the cost of the many services listed above. We ask that instead of the proposed amendment, you consider capping all fees at 15% of the total order, or if preferred, state that delivery fees and marketing fees can each be up to 10%, but not more than 15% combined. Below in my testimony, please find testimonials from Philadelphia restaurants that use and appreciate our platform and do not want to see their ability to market themselves capped. Grubhub looks forward to working with the members of the Philadelphia City Council on effective ways to provide relief to restaurants in a way that also provides a level playing field for all involved. Thank you.
Amy, thank you for your testimony. I know Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Chairman Squilla. Again, I do want to note that our office did listen to the comments relative to the bill when it was in its original form. We took all of it into consideration, not just that information that was, or specs that were relative to Grubhub, or versus Uber Eats, versus Caviar. We didn't do that. We took into consideration all of their recommendations. These were all of those included in the amendment, Mr. Chairman, that I will offer today are the ones that we felt that we could reach some common ground on. I will state for the record to Grubhub, if after this bill moves today, and we'll see whether or not it is voted out of committee, and then when it gets to the floor, whether or not it is voted and supported by all members of council, I do commit to continuing to work with the industry in the future. But right now, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I have listened to those who are paying rent and are trying to stay alive, and throughout neighborhoods in the city of Philadelphia. They have in essence told me that the bill introduced with the amendments that we will offer is what they need, and is what will provide them some safety and cushion, to be quite frank, to try to do, and I can't remember if her name was Janine, when Janine talked about those fees and how they eat away at that profit, and Darlene, right, who even in the midst of the pandemic is attempting to grow. So I have to, and I'm unapologetic, Mr. Chairman, about very strongly paying attention to the recommendation of the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association and all of those restaurants that we heard from. And for the record, Mr. Chairman, I also want you to know this. When you and I talked about this, I'm always talking about I'm a little jealous because of all of the restaurants you have in your area. And right now, as you heard Councilman Green mention to Darlene, she's in Councilman Jones's district. She's in Councilwoman Gaultier's district. Well, we want them to expand across the city, and we need to do everything that we can so that we are not eating away at their profit margins, and they can potentially consider to move into other neighborhoods like the 9th Councilmanic District. Oh, thank you. 9th Councilmanic District, Councilman Jones. I had to get that out real easily. So thank you so very much. But Grubhub, I do want you to know that I am interested in working with you. Rachel Meadows of my staff will reach out. And if I did say that name wrong, I think it was Judy Nee who spoke. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember Parker, and look forward to working with Darlene to see how we can find a spot in my district to open up. So that's great. Councilmember Green?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad Councilmember Parker was able to clear her throat to include the Northwest, especially the 9th Council District, in her commentary. I want to have a couple questions for Grubhub, but I just wanted to thank the commentary made by Councilmember Dom in reference to this industry, which has been hit so hard by COVID-19 pandemic, and giving a perspective on the cost of fees, also for the great work by the Pennsylvania Restaurateurs and Lodging Association. My question for Grubhub kind of follows the question I had for Dawn Somerville. I'm trying to make sure I have a full understanding of the industry. So my understanding, based on your testimony, that you allow restaurateurs, especially smaller restaurateurs, to either use their own delivery drivers or your own drivers, and that you also are more of a marketing and technology company as well. Is that my understanding?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And so so your concern is in reference to the cap on the fees and how that may eat into your way for marketing?
Yes, our largest vendor is Google. So we operate marketing programs for mostly small and medium-sized businesses. And if you cap our ability to advertise for these small businesses, we can't pay Google, and they demand to be paid, right? So then we have to spend less with them, and then restaurants who rely on us for exposure get less exposure. And again, the chains have plenty of avenues for advertising, radio, TV, brand recognition, all kinds of things. So they, we are one of the main ways that some of our small businesses advertise through our platform. And so if they're not allowed to advertise, they won't reach as many diners, and their orders will go down. And we've seen that happen in other cities.
Okay, and so basically your business platform is really is what I'm hearing is that because of your relationship with Google, you're able to help smaller restaurateurs who may not have the marketing budgets of a large chain to get the information out there for diners throughout a city like Philadelphia or other cities as a way to get information, especially in this time of COVID-19 when we can't do in-person dining.
That is correct. Small businesses also use us to help run their loyalty programs. Of course, chains don't need us to run loyalty programs, come 10 times, get your 11th entree free. But small businesses do use us for promotions that we can run for them and other marketing programs.
Okay, so it sounds like what I'm hearing is that because you're trying to work with small businesses, especially small restaurateurs in the city of Philadelphia, they need to be able to keep as much of a profit as possible, but you can partner with them in reference from a marketing perspective. So I know Councilmember Parker is working on has provided different amendments, I think trying to keep the amount of fees down as low as possible in order to not only provide opportunities for delivery drivers, but also for marketing. So I just need to kind of get a perspective because I'm learning this industry is somewhat new to me in reference to the differences between what you provide versus what some of the other businesses provide for more of a delivery company versus more of a marketing. So I just want to get that perspective because it gives me some more clarity from the questions I had from Ms. Somerville. So thank you for your answers.
No problem, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Councilmember Green. Councilmember Dom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a question, I guess, for Amy from Grubhub. Can you tell me, Amy, since the pandemic, across the board, what would you say the increase has been in deliveries? Has it been 50%, 100%? What's been that increase?
I'll have to check that's in our latest earnings. That's public information, so I don't have that at the tip of my fingers. But certainly in some markets, they've gone down, like New York, where so many people left New York City. And then certainly they've gone up in other areas. But I can find out, and follow up with you.
Because I will share with you the statistic I recently saw that prior to COVID-19, in Pennsylvania, food consumed, half was consumed in restaurants and half was purchased in neighborhood stores and supermarkets. Since COVID-19, 90% is purchased in food stores and local stores. Only 10% is in restaurants, which gives you an idea of the impact all these restaurateurs are feeling. But I'm just curious if the delivery in Philadelphia, for example, have our delivery orders gone up? I mean, the restaurants that I see, they're doing all their business is mostly delivery. So I have to think it's gone up. I just would like to know if you can find out what that percentage is. I mean, thank you for your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Chairman, is Judy, Mr. President? I don't know. After they testify, do they hang up? Is Judy Nee still on the line?
I am still here.
Oh, thank you, Judy. And I'm sorry if I chopped up your name the last time.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Judy, in response to Councilman Green's question, you heard Grubhub talk about the process and the difference between what they do and those carriers that focus on delivery, and they talked about the marketing perspective. Do you have any comments relative to what you heard Grubhub just testify to?
I appreciate what they're trying to say, and we do. And again, I'm not saying that these third-party delivery apps don't offer value. I'm saying that there should be shared value. It can't always be that they're squeezing restaurants. If you squeeze us, we don't exist, and therefore you also don't make money. So why can't we work together to find something equitable for all parties involved? If Grubhub wants to be more transparent, one of the things they could have done when they put out the promotion saying to a lot of us restaurateurs that weren't signed up with them, they asked us, hey, why don't you sign up for us? We're going to not have fees for you. But actually, if you read the fine print, it actually became a deferment of fees. So it still would have been added at the end, which actually just kind of screws us already again. So it just delayed it. For example, Caviar did their fees in half, their commission fees in half, and they completely waived all the pickup commission fees, which I found very good. It helped me a lot. And they also increased the payouts. Instead of it being once every 15 days, they increased it to every single day. We were getting cash flow on a more regular basis, which is incredibly valuable when you're just trying to make sure you can make payroll and rent. So those were all things that we found to be perfectly fine. If they want to help us, one of the things they can do is just allow us to increase the menu prices. We keep talking in percentages. They're talking about dollars. So why are we hemming and hawing over percentages when it should be let us increase our menu prices? You will get more money so you can pay for things. You can also charge more to the customers at the end too, because they are offering a service to the customers as well. So why can't we just make this all work together? We're not saying they don't deserve money for what they do. We're saying that it just cannot be always on our backs, because if you don't have us, they don't have a business as well. And it is small businesses that keep getting squeezed.
Judy, my final question to you, Judy, because I now want to make sure that I understand what you just said. You are telling me that it was promoted that the marketing service would be available to businesses at no cost, and that but when you read the fine print, the cost was just like deferred to the end, like similar to what a mortgage company would do with if they were allowing you to restructure your payments. They would say, okay, you can't make this month, so we're going to add this month to the end. Is that what you're describing?
Correct. It was not, as if you're using rent as a term, it was not an abatement, it was a deferment. So that's what wound up happening. So it was something I had received. I guess there was a mass email from specifically Matt Maloney, who is the CEO of Grubhub, and it was offering to help with us. And I was really excited because I said, well, if this, because a bunch of restaurateurs were just sending this around. And then I read somewhere else, somewhere in the fine print, I think it was on a Facebook or something social media related. And I wrote back, are you actually deferring or are you deferring or actually waiving the commission fees? So I asked for clarity and I did not receive that, but then it became public that it was actually just a deferment, not a complete waiving of the fees. So that was also a bait and switch situation that put a lot of us in a stressful situation, because we felt hope when they were trying to help us out, and it actually turned out not to be what it was originally marketed to, so it wasn't transparent.
Well, listen, I want to say thank you for that. And Mr. Chairman, while we won't do that now, in lending, and we went through this, Mr. Chairman, when I worked for Councilwoman Marion Tasco, Councilman Derek Green, I think you were in the law department during that time, when we worked on predatory lending. One of the challenge with predatory lenders was that there was no transparency in the underwriting criteria. Right. In addition to that, the truth in lending practices, there were challenges in. So if we're talking about marketing in particular, Judy, you've just raised another issue now that we may have to deal with at a later date. If that you are marketing a certain product, or you're saying that you're going to provide a certain service, and that's not clear, maybe that's something that we should discuss later on. And I didn't know that. So Judy, thank you for the education that you just provided. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Grubhub. I'd be happy to respond when appropriate.
Sure. Go ahead, Amy. State your name again and then just respond.
Sure. Amy Healy with Grubhub. Thank you. I would like to comment on our fee deferral program, which did provide much needed cash flow to restaurants. And to set the record straight, we have not collected any of those deferred payments to date, nor do we have plans to at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, is Mr. McMonagall, is anybody else here to testify?
I do not have anyone else scheduled to testify on either bill.
If there's nobody else here to testify on bill number 200293 or 200344, that will end our hearing. No further questions from members and the committee, and no other witnesses to testify. I will ask if there is anyone else present in the hearing whose name we have not failed to call and who wishes to offer testimony. Hearing none, I want to thank all the panels and witnesses for their participation today as we value your opinions. I now invite all panels and witnesses to please disconnect from the meeting before we go into our public meeting. We will now pause the proceedings briefly as multiple participants leave the hearing. So anybody except members of the committee, please disconnect from the hearing, and we then go into a public meeting. Council support, do we have everybody off?
Give me 1 second, please.
Thank you.
Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you very much. This concludes the public hearing and the committee of the committee. We will now go into a public meeting to consider actions to be taken on the bills before this committee today. So we're now in the public meeting. I guess for roll call, Mr. McMonagall, would you like to just read the roll of the people present at the public meeting?
Councilmember Dom?
Present.
Councilmember Gilmore Richardson?
Present.
Councilmember Gauthier?
Present.
Councilmember Johnson?
Present.
Councilmember Curtis Jones?
Present.
Councilmember Kendra Brooks?
Present.
Councilmember Derek Green?
Present.
Councilmember David O?
Present.
Councilmember Mark Squilla?
Present.
And Councilmember Parker?
Present.
Thank you all. We will now convene the public meeting. Mr. McGonigal, will you please call the roll? We took attendance. I'd like to recognize Councilmember Dom for a motion on bill number 200293.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that bill number 200293 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The bill has been moved and properly second. The bill number 200293 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Excuse me,
All those in-
Councilman.
Yes.
Before you say that, who are we putting down as the second?
Councilman Green, you beat me to it.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to report bill number 200293 from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. I'd like to recognize Councilmember Parker for a motion to amend bill number 200344.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offer an amendment to bill number 200344. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment to bill number 200344 be approved.
Second.
Second.
Councilmember Jones, second. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to bill number 200344 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the amendment to bill number 200344 has been approved. Councilmember Dom, for a motion on bill number 200344 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that bill number 200344 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Green, second. It has been moved and properly second that the bill number 200344 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill to the next session of council. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. This concludes the business before the Committee of Commerce and Economic Development today. Thank you all very much for your attendance. See you all tomorrow. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Good job. Good job.
Thank you, Chairman.